indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We gather together here today, intent on doing good work. We seek to represent fairly and well those who have given us this task. May our efforts be blessed with insight, guided by understanding and wisdom. We seek to serve with respect for all. May our personal faiths give us strength to act honestly and well in all matters before us. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the approval of the final agenda. For a motion to approve that agenda.
Move to approve the final agenda.
Second it.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? Passes unanimously. Next item is public comment. Madam Clerk.
Need to do anything? Oh. Good morning. Sarah Spector. I'm an attorney with Retzel and Andrus, and I'm here on behalf of Barbara Salemi, the owner of 200 Pearl Street. It is not a public hearing item. I wanted to speak briefly on the rehearing request you're being asked to consider as item A on the administrative agenda. Set forth in the staff report, a request for rehearing is appropriate if there is new evidence or points of law or fact that were either overlooked or misstood by town council, or there was an error or misapplication of the law by town council. In its report, staff has opined that neither of these conditions have been met. However, page 1 of the supplemental form filed with the rehearing request identified 2 errors of law associated with the council's decision. First error was that the decision was not accompanied by written findings supporting town council's decision, as is required by statute. As of the deadline for the rehearing request to be filed, March 27, 2020, no written findings had been offered. It was not until April 9, 2020, that staff issued a letter stating that council denied their request because it is not compatible with the neighborhood. However, no explanation was given either by council at the time of its decision or in the letter from staff as to how the request is incompatible. The second error of law identified in the rehearing request is that the denial was not based on competent substantial evidence. The town council based its decision on incompatibility. No evidence to that effect was presented before or during the hearing. Staff found the request to be compatible with the surrounding neighborhood and recommended approval of the request. Furthermore, neither of the residents of Pearl Street that testified during public comment opined that their concerns were based on incompatibility. Rather, they took issue with potential commercial use of the property, though the applicant was not seeking approval of commercial uses. No written findings offered by town council, and in the absence of competent substantial evidence upon which the council's decision was based, the applicant is entitled to a rehearing. The applicant is hopeful that by being given an opportunity to a rehearing, we can address the minor outstanding issues relative to the conditions recommended by staff, which the applicant is willing to agree to with certain minor wording changes.
Thank you.
Next request is from Eric Hoffman.
Partners with Barb Salemi at 200 Pearl Street, where Sarah was just talking about. Just wanted to kind of reiterate what Sarah had said, and you know, we were very close, I thought, when we were working together with the board, and at that meeting, we have a duplex. We want to keep it as a duplex. The only thing we're asking to do is to remove it and rebuild it. So we're not asking for any change of use per se, just the same use, just a new building. So we want to beautify it. It's an older beach duplex with a non-conforming. So we want to bring it all up to speed per se. The LPA had already approved that, and then we got to the board meeting here the last time, and it just seemed like things, it was a tough meeting. It was the one where the COVID with the St. Patrick's Day going to get shut down and all that. And I just felt a little bit like we didn't spend enough time on it. We could have probably gotten together on an agreement of what should be built there. And in that meeting, the mayor had said at the end, well, you can always bring this back. Well, to go any other way to bring this back would mean going through the whole process again, which would take up a lot of time and effort and money, obviously. And that's why I was thinking maybe we could rehash this out a little bit and come to some agreement that everybody would be happy with in the end. On our road right now, when they say non-conforming, there's at least 4 duplexes that I know of, one which is right across the street. We've got the commercial on the beginning, as you know, Armando's in the attorney's office. And then we go further down the street, we have a marina, apartments, and a mobile home area. I guess when they say non-conforming, I think that we'd fit right in with the look of the street. I'm not asking to do a huge building. We actually have a lot and a half, and that's why it was considered a duplex to begin with back in the day. We want to build something that will fit with it. We're not going to, I mean, if we did a single family, which they say we can just do a single family, we could do probably 3,500 to 4,000 square feet, max out the lot and do something huge, and that's not what our ask is. So we do want to keep it conforming with the neighborhood per se. That being said, I guess, you know, we just want to have a new building at the end of the day, but yet not lose our ability to rent or to you know, have 2 units. Obviously, 2 units on the beach is much more valuable than 1 unit, but yet we want to do it the right way and, you know, bring the better building into the community, make it legal per se, and conforming with all the new regulations. So that's what we're asking for in a nutshell. I hope you do reconsider the rehearing. I think it warrant discussion, and I think we could maybe get something put together here as the new board and, you know, some of the old board members. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you, Mr. Huffman, and I agree with you, that was a bad day when you came in.
Mayor, members of the council, we had a very similar situation the last time we had a request for reconsideration. And I need to advise you at this point in time that under your existing code, the comments of the 2 first speakers as it relates to the request for reconsideration, you cannot. It would be prejudicial for you to consider and take those into account in deciding whether or not to grant the motion for reconsideration. Your code very specifically states the only basis upon which you can make a determination to grant the request for rehearing is the written documents that have been submitted and they're part of the record. There is no oral argument. There is no opportunity to advocate and try and persuade you to grant that motion for reconsideration. The speakers are entitled under Florida law to give comment during the public comment portion of this agenda, but you cannot consider their comments when considering the item on the agenda that they were speaking to. It would be completely inappropriate and it is prejudicial to do so. And so with that admonishment, I'll allow the clerk to call the next speaker.
Next public comment request is from Forrest Kritzer.
Morning, Mayor and council and staff. The record is Forrest Kritzer, and I come to you this morning to respectfully ask for your consideration for me as applicant for the LPA. I've had my heart brought to this island some almost 16 years ago, and I feel very strong about our island, about our government and our leadership, and how this island is directing its progress. And we need progress, but within that, we also need to keep stability and unity with business and residents alike, our taxpayers. And I feel like I have the knowledge and the capabilities to work with individuals. I've been actively involved, as you know, in the community through my church work and through the feeding the community and through the businesses and talking with them and how they can continue to grow and be effectively on this island. And I am really strong about our history of our island, and I feel very strong about our time that we had in World War II and the part that we played with Page Field and the Caloosahatchee River and the Mound House and Shell Mound, and been actively involved in those areas and currently involved with the Community Resource Action Board, which I've been on for several years too. And as you as as a council gives us things to do, we went out and we did those that you have requested us to do to bring back to you for your approval. I know LPA is at your demand, and then that you assign us those opportunities to work for you and research things for you to help you make those decisions that you have to make for the town. And I just ask for your consideration for the LPA this morning. I feel like as coming to you in this time of troubles and trials of what we're having to go through, if I show you publicly that I am committed to our town and love our town and want to see it continue to grow and prosper and make your job easier, I hope, as a committee to bring issues to you that you need to address. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Forrest.
Next request, Robert Howell.
Morning, everybody. How are you?
Mr. Powell, I'm going to ask you to remove your hat,
yeah.
please. It's okay.
Just used to having it on. I
It's all right,
apologize.
no problem.
But good morning again. Thank you guys so much for having me here. This is my first step, hopefully, in starting a city ordinance to stop the sale of the little yellow belly slider turtles in some of our stores on the island. I know we have a lot of amazing groups here that are constantly fighting for our wildlife. I'm in many of them. I'm a Calusa Waterkeeper Ranger. I work with Turtle Time. I do a lot of things with that. But I think something that a lot of people are overlooking is that there is a sale of these little turtles. Now, it is legal. These turtles are not native to southern Florida, and therefore it is okay to sell these turtles. But I have a question for everybody. Where do you guys go when you want to get a pet? Go to a pet store, probably, normally. And a lot of the locals on the island who would want a pet aren't going to be going to the huts that sell the t-shirts and the flip-flops and that. And that's where they're selling these little turtles. I've found many of these turtles released onto the beach. They are a freshwater turtle, so they pretty much immediately die once the salt water gets on them. I have found probably about a half dozen around the island that have been probably bought with good intentions to then release somewhere to get them back to nature. Really all I see happening is they try to release them in the salt water and then they'll die, or they release them into fresh water, and then we have one more invasive species here. And Florida is already #2 in the world for more invasive species than anywhere else. I myself went in to try to talk to them, and I've done a few protests since then on the outside, just kind of trying to get people aware of this. And when I went in before I started the protesting and trying to raise awareness, I asked, where do we do with these turtles, or what's your intent with these turtles? And they said, we're just trying to sell them. I was like, all right, I'll take a turtle. It's a $20 turtle. I said, I don't want to buy the tank. They sell separately a $10 little box for this turtle. And I said, do I have to buy the tank also? They said, no, you don't have to buy the tank also. I said, well, what do I carry it in? They go, well, you can go next door and they'll give you a cup with water that you can take it in, or we can put it in your pocket. So that's telling me how they're raising them and selling them. So again, it is legal to do right now, but that doesn't make it right. So I just wanted to hopefully start a first step in a city ordinance or something to maybe kind of deter the sale of these turtles, because people who are wanting a pet to get a forever home are going to go to a pet store where they get books, they can get the proper things to care for the pets. They're not going to be going to these places because the tourists who shop here, I don't want to shut these places down at all, but the tourists who shop at these stores, if they buy this pet with intent to get home, it's going to be very hard to get these turtle home successfully. They'll die in a plane. They probably wouldn't allow them on planes. So, okay, that kind of sums up what I'm trying to say, I think. But anyway, so that is my first stop. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. First I've heard of that. Appreciate that.
Mayor and Council, last night I received an email, of which you've all received a copy. It's from Doug Spearensmith. He said he would like this to be on the record. Would the council like me to read it?
Well, we all received that email with that verbatim.
I don't think it's necessary to read it into the record. We all received it.
Yeah, everybody received it. We can enter it into the record, but there's no need to read it. I don't think this.
Thank you.
We've all read it.
That concludes the request for public comment that I've received.
Okay, thank you, and thank you all for speaking up this morning. Okay, the next item is local achievements and recognitions. We'll start down on this end with Councilman Veach.
Yeah, I heard this morning that Turtle Time is officially as nest number 50 as of this morning. So that's yeah, it's good to see the recovery coming. Also, down the south part of the island, The least terns there's lots of little fuzzy chicks running around down there, and the black skimmers are starting to lay eggs. So the nesting season is under full steam down there. That's pretty much what I have.
At this time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mayor.
I'd like to recognize all the volunteers that helped with the water sampling recently. Penny Jarrett runs that program, and I know she had to get a lot of people to do double duty because of COVID, et cetera. Some people had dropped out of volunteering, so a lot of people stepped forward and did 2 and 3 samples for her. So important that we continue that sampling so that we have a base of data that's consistent, and we managed to get it done before the wet season started. I'd like to recognize all those folks that got up early and went out and with their civic duty.
Nothing at this time, Mayor.
Okay, we'll move on to advisory committee items and reports. Anybody? This morning, okay. Next item is the approval of minutes for the meeting of May 18th, regular town council meeting. Is there a motion to approve or amend or?
I have an amendment on page 4. The final agenda was amended before it was approved unanimously. Just need to add was amended on page 4.
Other corrections? Is there a motion to move, to approve the minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second it?
Second it. Any further discussion? Objection? Minutes are approved unanimously. Next item is the consent agenda. There are 2 items on there. Which, A is the update authorized signers on the SBA account, and B is the Mass Mutual CARES Act provisions. Unless we want to go through these, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Action? Consent agenda passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay. The next item, we'll move into the administrative agenda, and item A is 200 Pearl Street rehearing request. This is consideration of 200 Pearl rehearing request pursuant to criteria in section 34-93. Who wants to start this conversation?
I'll start it.
Okay.
We've gone through this, both Jim and I, through the LPA several times, so I'm quite familiar with it. I've read through this one several times, and I honestly don't see a whole lot there to warrant granting of a rehearing.
Okay. Anybody else want to?
I would concur with my colleague. We've heard this from the very beginning through the LPA process. I watched the council meeting when I was a candidate for the council, then serving for the LPA. I thought the council handled it very appropriately. Not believe the applicant has reached the appropriate threshold for a rehearing, and I do not support a rehearing at this time.
I would concur that this does not the level that's appropriate to grant a rehearing.
Concur.
Okay. I don't know whether we need to vote on that or not, but we'll want to make that motion to deny the rehearing request.
Moved.
When moved, is there a second?
I will second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? Objection to the motion? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. The next item on the agenda is B, which is the TPI Margaritaville Pedestrian Walkover Aesthetics Review.
Would you like us to put it on the screen?
Why not? Beautiful.
So, Mr. Mayor, as part of the development project approval that was granted by the town council, one of the requests or conditions was that the council would be able to review the aesthetics of the pedestrian bridge. The bridge, as you know, goes over Sterling Boulevard, and the engineering and meeting of the building requirements is being reviewed by Lee County, part of their process to grant use of a pedestrian bridge over their right-of-way. Council's request was to review the aesthetics to make sure that bridge complemented the look and feel of Fort Myers Beach. So the drawings have been submitted by TPI to the town for that purpose, so that they can complete that requirement of any council consent for the aesthetics.
Okay. Is this where we were going to discuss whether there's going to be signage on it or advertising or this or that, or we're just looking at the walkover in general?
Right now, there's none proposed in terms of signage or what on top of on the face of the bridge. So as you approach it, you would just see that view. Obviously, there was a request from council to make a accommodation for sign or banner, whether it be permanent or temporary. We could ask them to make sure that the bridge could accommodate that structurally. Whether that's one coming in or one coming in, one coming out, or just a banner across the bridge, or you all like a clean look of nothing at all. So to the extent that what you might ask for would add weight, we would need to let them know about that so they could build that into their structural design.
I see Mr. Torgerson walked in here. Tom, you want to come up for a minute and talk about your bridge? Please.
Morning, Council. Tom Torgerson, Fort Myers Beach resident. The status of the bridge is that we have completed and signed off with the county on our agreement with them, and that included the reviews that Roger referenced. So it involved FDOT in addition to LEDOT and county administration, including legal. Of course, no offense, it was the most challenging piece, but but we got it done. It's all signed off. The commission approved it, and it's been signed off. So we have that agreement. And in the process, what we have, if we look at the bridge, we can flip back one shot there. Explain what you're seeing here is it's a roofed bridge. It has a railing, but a little bit of shading that you're seeing on the horizontal sides is a protective screen, and we've made it as visible while making it functional to protect against any possibility of somebody throwing something over the edge of it to traffic. And that was a requirement that was imposed by those other agencies. We've kept it, other than that, really kind of lean and mean, and tried to not make it any bulkier than it needs to be. It's very structurally sound. It is engineered by a company called Bridge Brothers that does this for a living. But we are in front of you, as Roger said, one of the steps in the process, not requiring any hearing or anything other than council's review of the aesthetics. And there had been talk of possibly putting some form of artwork or something on it. Also been talk of as Roger said, of leaving it without artwork on it. If you want to put artwork on, a couple of thoughts I would have is just that I think that it would be opening a can of worms to get into anything that's illuminated. We've got this intersection here. A big part of the engineering review that FDOT and LEDOT did was traffic related. And with stoplights and hanging stoplights on the structure, making dedicated land for land-based control signal and so on and so forth, but in evaluating all the traffic factors, more illumination probably is, I think that would be something that the county probably would prefer not to have, and I think it's just logical. Don't make nighttime more disruptive at that intersection. And then you have the turtle habitat as well that you'd have to deal with. So I would suggest not going down the path of anything illuminated, lightweight and durable if you're going to put something on it. So the different types of plastics today with stainless fasteners that can hold up to the wind load. I think we're rated at 170 or 75 mile an hour for the bridge structure itself. We'd want to make sure that anything that was on there, could withstand that kind of punishment. But other than that, it's really up to you folks for discussion as to, I'll be here and available for any input that you would like.
Anybody have
She
any
has some-
questions of Mr. Torgerson while he's here?
I've got one, if you don't mind. Now, isn't the future plan, isn't been talked about putting a traffic light at Crescent Street?
Yes, we've, Roger, you could speak to this better. We've dedicated a right-of-way for that, correct?
Yes, the Lee County has a traffic signal under design. We have our signal that sort of work in conjunction with it at Old St. Carlos, and I guess that's called Fifth there. So yes, there is a signal under design. The plan is to have those two signals installed and then work and be controlled in terms of maximizing pedestrian traffic flow via the county's traffic control center, the camera systems that will be on those signals.
There's one concern I just see, and I don't really, the way, the proximity to this bridge and to that intersection, that is there enough distance, or will this bridge in any way obscure the traffic light?
My understanding is that issue's been looked at and resolved by Lee County by getting the height and the fact that the ports for the bridge are back from the right-of-way. So their traffic engineering team has looked at that issue. They're well aware of that issue as they handle both the bridge and that particular signal junction. Their designer is probably halfway through the design already, that signal, so I would believe all that has been accounted for.
All right. The only thing I could see if it did, if it did create any kind of visibility issues that they may, want to hang a traffic light on there, in addition to the ones they have, that would affect mechanical design.
There is accommodation for them to hang lighting, traffic control lighting on the bridge. Pretty accommodated.
Stop.
I had a question. If we could go to the slide that shows the staircase next to the pedestrian bridge, I think it's the next one, or maybe it's back one. Oh, and there, and maybe it's just the picture. I can see, so someone can access the stairs, it looks like to the right there, who pedestrian, go up those stairs and then go across. Is there another staircase on the other side that we just can't see?
There is. So on the staircase side that you're looking at right now, Jim, additionally, you see the two pillars supporting that end of the bridge there. Those are outside of the right-of-way, and behind them is an elevator as well. So I just wanted to point out that there's not just staircase access, but there is an elevator back behind those two pillars open to the public. And when you shift to the Gulf side of this bridge, pillars again, and they again are set behind the right-of-way, and there is an elevator set back in there that's open to the public. A little bit different on the Gulf side is that you see a staircase parallel Estero Boulevard kind of coming at us to the south. That's actually a continuation of the walkway path. And what that does is lead to, public restrooms, part of the approval. Yeah, so on this, in this view would be on the right side of the screen, but on the other side of the bridge. That walkway leads you to men's public restroom and a women's public restroom. And then in the to the public, we provided an easement to the public between the water entertainment center and this would probably be most helpful. If you look at the Gulf Side building there that has some restaurants and 30 hotel units in it, and in this view on the right side there is a walkway all the way from Estero Boulevard all the way to the beach. And so the restrooms actually face the water park, and that that walkway wraps the building. Access the bathrooms, and the staircase drops right down into that easement area that's on the right side of that building, and you go either direction back out to the street or to the beach. I explained that well enough.
It's helpful because I think what's missing in these pictures is that this is potentially a benefit for traffic issues in the sense that pedestrians can easily access the pedestrian bridge. The staircases aren't really apparent in the picture, so I just want to make sure it's clear that this has a potential upside in terms of pedestrian traffic being able to cross that bridge and not obstructing traffic. Is that fair?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Counselor, when the bridge was originally discussed as part of the project approval, one of the conditions was that people at sidewalk grade get up and use get up onto the bridge and use the bridge to cross Estero Boulevard. Even if you were just the general public and not necessarily guests of the resort.
And I remember that conversation. It just wasn't apparent in the picture. Yeah.
That's been incorporated into the design, as Mr. Torkelson said, along with the public restrooms.
And I think that's great. It just wasn't apparent in the picture, so I want to make sure that was clear to folks. Yep.
Okay. Any other questions for Tom while he's here?
I just had one additional question. I remember at one point you floated out the idea of doing the arches on there. Is that the desire? Is the desire of TPI in a perfect world to have it remain as we see it today, or do you all have something you would like to see in terms of artwork, or are you comfortable with this, what we have here today?
I think you're asking our personal opinion on that, and that's all it is a personal opinion, because it's your decision. Our personal decision would be to keep it lean and mean and lightweight and not make it something that just jumps out. I think it's going to be a heck of a vista, a very photographic vista. People are going to want to go up there. It's the view, if you can think of it, over Times Square and the pier and Crescent Beach Park is going to be nothing other than fantastic. But I see an opportunity is just the town reserving the right to banner it for your different events, your seasonal events, and so on and so forth. But that would be my opinion. That's all it is my opinion.
Thank you.
Else? Thank you, Tom. Being here. Okay.
You kept asking if we had questions, and I didn't have a question, so I didn't say anything.
Go right ahead.
I just wanted to say I prefer the lean and clean. I think it looks fantastic. I've been a fan of this pedestrian bridge since it was first proposed. I would prefer not for us to hang banners and make it look potentially messy. They often get ripped and torn and cause problems. I think it's beautiful the way it is, and I would like for us to have a consensus to Tom along those lines, personally.
I would concur with the Vice Mayor. I think that there's already going to be an entry feature before this, and it's also it's going to be a fairly busy part of the road there. So I think anything that's a distraction or that it's busy, I think just be a detriment. So I like the lean and mean design myself too.
Yeah, I'm with both of you. I like how nice and clean it is, and I do like the suggestion though of maybe down the road if you need or want to add a temporary banner for Shrimp Fest or other things that might be going on, then you could maybe do that. But I like the way it looks now.
I agree with all of that. So, have your direction.
Mr. Mayor, could we just get a consent vote just on the record so that there's approval in the project file?
Okay, is there a motion to approve the edits?
Moved.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? Any objection? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, the next item is request for appointment to the LPA. We have 4 candidates for 2 spots on the LPA. Those candidates are Forrest Kritzer, Douglas Spearn Smith, Karen Swanbeck, and Karen Woodson. Yes.
Friday evening, after the packet had been published, I received from a Donald, S-U-D-D-U-T-H. The council cares to consider.
What was the last name?
S-U-D-D-U-T-H. 21391 Widgeon Terrace.
All right, well, we have our ballots here. We can fill them out, and the clerk can collect them, and we'll have our 2 new members.
Unfold them or leave them unfolded this time?
They are public record.
Michelle?
Like there should be some like game show music going on in the back.
Probably by the accounting firm of.
One caller in and one out. Unless you're on TV.
Okay, we have 3 ballots, 3 votes for Forrest Kritzer, 4 for Karen Swanbeck, 1 for Doug Spearn-Smith, and 2 for Karen Woodson. That would make Karen Swanbeck and Forrest Kritzer your appointees.
Very good.
I have a copy of that.
Thank you very much for everybody who volunteered for that and put their names in. Forrest, congratulations. I'm sure you'll do a great job, and
I'll need a copy of
Karen
that.
Swanbeck as well. Okay. We'll move on to the next item, which is D, Boating Infrastructure Grant, the BIG, for the mooring field. This is to authorize the town manager to execute a grant agreement and associated documents with the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission for the Boating Infrastructure Grant, BIG. Town manager?
Mr. Mayor and members of council, believe it or not, the town embarked upon this effort to secure a grant to help us refurbish the tackle that we utilize in the mooring field to hold the boats to the ocean bottom. Started in 2018, and this is associated with Irma, the storm Irma that we all went through here. These are federal dollars that flow through the state and presented this grant opportunity. Time the council urged us to go forward and seek this funding, and I think Chelsea's here and answer any detailed questions you have about the grant or the project.
Questions for Chelsea?
Chelsea, can you explain, just for public, sorry, just for trying to make sure you can hear me and you can see me. I'm going to go into a little bit about what the grant will be used for, what the money's going to actually go to replace.
Also, Riley, Public Works Director. Good morning. We have a 70-ball mooring system out there, 70 systems. This will replace 55 of them. A couple years ago, we replaced it, I think, 10 of them, so this will be almost a new field other than the helical anchor that's in the ground. Will be complete new systems.
What does this system consist of? I mean, the anchor's still there, so this is what, the rope and the mooring ball?
Yes. So I can give you a diagram. It is a lot more than just a rope and a mooring ball, but yes.
Right. And how often do you have to change these?
We've been fortunate to maintain what we have, and I think they've been there for over 10 years. But these depends on the weather. What stemmed this was Hurricane Irma, and we saw the need to replace the majority of these systems, but we can get a pretty long life out of them.
I have one question. Is this unusual where the town's match is larger than the grant itself?
Unusual as in?
I mean, as in grants go.
As grants go, yes, sir. Typically, the grantee, the town would be paying a lesser percentage than the grantor, but in this particular case, the equation is inverted. Alternative, of course, is that we don't take the federal money and then we absorb 100% of the costs, and yeah, maybe we could downscale projects somewhat by closer examination of the individual systems and determining some might be able to squeeze out another year or two or whatever, but frankly, this is an expense we're facing either way, and whatever help we can get will help us defer the cost.
I want to leave it on the table. I get it. Is it because it's a federal grant? Is that why? Is it just this particular?
Typically, the relationship between match is usually a factor of demand. So, greater the demand, you probably remember this days from the days in Indiana. The greater the demand, your pool of money gets dispersed amongst a larger population, and therefore you have to cut down the percentage if you're going to try to partner with as many communities as possible.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, quick question for.
Yes, sir.
Is there an expiration date on the grant money it has to be used by?
I believe in the contract it says a year. We have a year to do the work.
What date?
Execution of the contract.
What are the plans for, if it's passed, to start this?
Now, we're out of season. We have to get it executed, get the executed contract back, and start immediately.
Yes, sir. It's if you see, the next item, that implementation.
Any other questions of the staff? Comments here from council? Not, is there a motion to approve the?
I'd move to authorize the town manager to execute the grant agreement for the boating infrastructure grant.
Moved, is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Objection? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next item is E, supplemental task authorization number 6, Coastal Engineering Consultants. This is to approve a contract with Coastal Engineering Consultants, professional services in the amount of $87,000 for mooring field systems replacement associated with big grant match requirements, and authorize the town manager to execute the required documentation.
Mr. Mayor, so this would be the implementing entity to help us timely complete the work that's covered in the grant you just approved. Don't be confused by sort of the misnomer of Coastal Engineering Consultants. They're physically going to be doing actual work. So sometimes you see engineering, you think they're just doing an engineering, and we're hiring a construction company to implement the work of the engineer. That's not the case here. The engineer will be doing the vast majority of the work as well as the engineering.
Thank you. Questions of Roger or the staff? Comments? Motion to approve the contract? Coastal Engineering Consultants?
I'll make a motion, we approve the contract.
Moved, is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Objection? Motion carries unanimously. Next item is F, ITB-20-16-PW, road resurfacing. This is authorization to award a construction contract to Pavement Maintenance LLC. In response to ITB-20-16-PW road resurfacing in the bid amount of $137,482.50. Appropriate and allocate the funds to complete the project and authorize the town manager to execute the contract documents. Is there a motion to award this contract? Authorize the town manager to authorize this contract.
Move to authorize that ITB 20-16-PW road resurface.
Second? I'll second. Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? The motion carries unanimously. Next item in the last. Sir.
I apologize for the timing. I had asked talked to the fire chief and to our police captain to be here and available for item G. I told them to be here at 10. You guys have been very efficient with the agenda, so can I suggest you take a short break and allow them the few minutes to get here? Or we can get into it and
We'll take
see
a
if
break.
they're on.
We'll take a break. That sounds good. We'll take a, you're right, it's been very efficient this morning. Thank you all very much. And we'll meet back here at 10 o'clock, 15 minutes, 16 minutes. Okay, we're going to call the meeting back to order. It's 10:17. Next item is the special event permit application, the 4th of July fireworks and/or parade. This is to authorize staff to proceed and obtain outside agency approvals for a special event permit, the 4th of July fireworks and/or parade. I'm going to go out of order here and just give you a few remarks of my own before we get started here. I'll start by saying that no one loves a parade more than I do. I don't miss too many of them, and or fireworks. I'm always at our fireworks, and I don't think I've missed them in close to 40 years. These are different times we live in right now, and I don't think with the rest of the county, all the other municipalities canceling their events, I don't think it's, and also Collier County for that matter, I don't think it's prudent for the town of Fort Myers Beach to be carrying on these events at this time. And the businesses, as was noted last time at the last meeting, the businesses are going to do their business that day regardless whether there's fireworks on the beach or not, or parade. And all I can think of is, from the business point of view, is if they want bad advertising, all they have to do is look at the Lake of the Ozarks big party that happened out there. And with the lack of social distancing, and it's now been discovered that there were some cases involved there of the COVID-19. So God knows how many people were infected at that gathering. If the town of Fort Myers Beach were the only municipality and in place in the county of Lee and all of Southwest Florida, for that matter, to have fireworks, I can only imagine where all the people are going to come. So, and also in this particular time period, so sorry to say that with all the social unrest that's happening right now, that I don't know that we want to take a chance on any people coming down here at that time of or to in this particular time now to cause any trouble down here. I don't anticipate that, but one never knows. So those are my comments, and I'm happy to listen to the other members here, and then we'll make a decision on which way we're going to go with the 4th of July this year. Members, or do we want to hear from the fire department first? Chief, like to come up for a minute?
Morning.
Morning.
Council, community, staff, thank you for the invite to let us come here. We enjoy talking. So was contacted by Town Manager Hernstad, as well as talked to some of you over the last couple of weeks asking how things were going in the public safety realm. So saw this as an opportunity. I'll try not to get too long-winded, but I know you had asked some questions about what we do in planning for a special event in general, and this is a great opportunity to talk about that a little bit. Feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions. That was predominantly what I was here to talk about a little bit. Funny to say it, and I know my law enforcement buddies aren't here yet, but I'll try not to speak too much for them, but when we prepare for a special event, not to scare anyone, but for us it's a planned disaster. You know, I know that sounds scary, but we plan for the worst and hope for the best like everybody else does, but you expect public safety, of course, to have every plan in place in case things go bad. And every time we plan for a special event, whether it be something small or something very large that's bringing thousands of people to our island, we plan for things to go wrong and have action plans, incident action plans. So those include the different branches of our organization, everything from operations, the fire trucks and the ambulances, to Chief Martin's side of the house, the plans review, the life safety portion of it to keep things from happening. As we were discussing this over the last week with some of you about what goes into something like July 4th or a parade or anything similar, as we assess it, we look at a lot of different factors, and some of those, actually, to me, I went to a conference last year, and it was put on by Las Vegas Police Department, and they were talking about the shooting that they had there, and they have a very robust special events planning system within Las Vegas. They're kind of doing special events a lot more than we are, but we learned a lot from their planning, and an example would be when the Las Vegas shooting took place, that was at a country western concert event. not a different type of concert event. As simple as that sounds, we take into consideration the type of event, the type of people. Is it families? Is it single folks? The type of alcohol consumption, the type of behavior as different type of events kind of emit. And we take all that into consideration to put together the response package for that event, if you will. The response package is derived from the community's expectation of service. An example would be, on any given day in Fort Myers Beach, you expect your fire truck to be there within 4 minutes, your ambulance to be there in 4 minutes, and what we call the effective force. All the fire trucks that need to come to your event there within 12 minutes. Those are the standards we set. And that gives you 4 fire engines, a ladder truck, 2 ambulances, and a battalion chief if you have a fire in this area. So a lot of resources fairly quickly. And the community's come to expect that over the years. The community pays for that, of course. Sometimes, just like military or law enforcement, we almost take for granted those resources will always be there in the right volume as we need. That's not always the case. You travel across this country and you get different resource complements based on what community members want to pay for and things like that. And so that leads me back to special events. If we have a special event in the community, we have to be able to give that special event the same level of service that the community gets every day. And on the other side of the island, somebody that has a cardiac event or a fire needs to get the same group of resources they're used to in the same amount of time. That feeds into how we plan for an event. So if we're going to add 100,000 people on the island for the AC/DC concert, then we have to provide a package of resources for that concert, as they have instances. And then we also have to provide a package of resources for the rest of the island, so everybody gets the same service they're used to every day. That may seem kind of simplistic, but that's really how we look at the response package or the response model. The second piece is a lot of the preventative stuff. You go into a restaurant or a hotel on our island and they are adhering to the fire and life safety code of this island, and you know they're inspected annually, et cetera, et cetera. But when somebody throws up a tent or a food truck, well, if it's inspected, it is in Fort Myers Beach. So there's a certain code compliance component that goes into inspection of the food tent or review of the plans for a facility you're going to use. Maybe you have a special event at a facility on the island. We start by reviewing that facility's fire inspection records over the years, make things in compliant. Then we look at the facility you're going to use, different hazards and so forth, and try and plan for your event. But again, as simple as some of that sounds, it's when we have mobile events or things that pop up, we want to give them the same inspection and life safety protection that we would a freestanding business that's been here for years. Because at the end of the day, it's similar to somebody coming here from out of town. They deserve to expect a certain level of safety when they come to our island, whether it's because of a huge event or just to stay for the weekend. And so we're trying to manage that package. So that's a little bit of what goes into it for us. And as you know, Mayor, you kind of hit the nail on the head. We can plan for tens of thousands of people for July 4th or parades or fireworks. We're in kind of a unique challenge of how do we plan for a virus? How do we plan for that type of it? And we haven't done it before. It's very new, so it adds an element. We will still respond to whatever the town decides to do, whether you have events or not, and we'll put together response packages. We may have to alter those response packages a little bit appropriately. And of course, I'll always say it, our big exposure is, of course, to the first responders, the only responders, the folks having to go out there and protect people. So if there are large crowds of people, people are going to fall down, people are going to get hurt, and our responders will have to go into that group of people, of course, to render aid, but it does expose them a little bit. A final part of this, and Martin, I'll keep highlighting over there. He talked about a special event not too long ago, and he said, it's not just fire, and it's not just this happening. He said, we're one bad hot dog vendor away from a mass casualty incident. And as funny as that sounds, it's why we harp so much on these codes and even a food vendor, making sure they're within compliance, because if everybody gets fed a bad meal and it has immediate effects on a large population of people, that quickly overwhelms our system. We don't have enough ambulances and enough resources to take care of them. So all of that kind of factors into the unknown, the unthought of items when it comes to special events. Finally, to speak to July 4th specifically, of course, when we're involving pyrotechnics, that's a whole nother part of our organization. The Deputy Fire Marshal's office gets involved in that, and we have certain inspection practices and staff on site to do that. Whether you did that or relocated that or whatnot, that article really stays the same. You just get into issues of evacuation or safety zones, all the way down to mortar and shell size and how big a safety zone needs for people. And so trying to expand that or contract that all kind of. That was a lot, kind of a whirlwind of special event information. I brought an expert just in case you have code questions, of course, but be happy to take any questions you have about current events or.
Anybody like to To the chief?
Yeah, Chief, I have a question. So with the fireworks show like is proposed, what is the zone? How, both, how far away, I guess that's how far people have to be away from where the actual mortars are going off? And how many places on the island do we have where you can actually the fireworks? Do we have enough space?
Question, and I can't give you an absolute number or direct answer because it really comes down to shell mortar size. That changes everything. So when, say, the town or the firework vendor would submit that permit application for a fireworks show, we would assess their planned pyrotechnic usage and determine the safety or fallout zone based on that. So if it was too big, then you could restrict your size to get a smaller fallout zone. And when we shoot them off on the pier, there's a section of the beach section off so people can't be in that immediate fallout zone from a safety standpoint. If you decrease that mortar size substantially, you likely can impact that zone. So that opens up a lot more venues to potentially have something like that. I mean, everything from you do something way out in the water, of course you have a decreased fallout zone, but you also have a lot of FAA and Coast Guard issues if you do something in the water. If you something way over at the other end, say in a Lover's Key type area or something like that where there's not a lot of structures around, you can handle that fallout zone a lot easier. But I'm sorry for not an immediate direct answer, but it really comes back to mortar size, shell size. That'll determine kind of the safety zone.
Councilmember Veach, the traditional show that we've put on is 500 feet. So if we stuck to, as the chief says, the typical mortar size and size of show and with all the features, that would be the safety zone we've used in the past. As the chief said, you can decrease the size of the shells and that would be adjusted appropriately based on the review of the fire department.
It's a little bit off topic, but it's related to Bill's question, so I guess I'm going to throw it in here. I have a big concern about the fact that people are shooting off larger and larger fireworks in neighborhoods. Because you talk about this safety zone, I'm concerned about the fact that things fall on houses and roofs and catch on fire, which is a concern as well. Is that a legitimate concern that I have?
I share your concern. We definitely have a concern for that. In fact, years back in different, you remember the little candle with the bag on top and it'd go up and then it'd float back down somewhere? That drove our fire marshal crazy because those things are coming back down on top of roofs and they're open flames. But fireworks can be very similar. So that, an example, back to the other council member's question is, there's one thing about shooting stuff off on a pier. When you're shooting stuff off in the middle of a neighborhood where you have structures and vegetation and unknown stuff around, it makes it very difficult to, one, patrol and determine. You do rely a lot on the community when that happens to phone us if something happens. If we were to relocate fireworks, we'd probably want a lot more patrols in place by our personnel to start checking and seeing what fallout occurs. But yes, it is an absolute appropriate concern. You know, I've only been here for about 4 years, and I came from Colorado, which is a highly wildland urban interfaced area, and there was a lot more restriction on that because of the low relative humidity and the flammable fuels. But that was a major concern there from a wildfire risk, I think. Risk.
And if someone in the town notices that people are setting off fireworks in the neighborhood, I assume they should call the deputy before you, unless they actually see a fire.
Correct. Yeah, it's a law enforcement issue, I believe. But of course, if you see a fire, we want to get there as quick as possible. But it is more of a law application.
Questions for the chief?
Mayor, I just want to mention that, and I don't know if John wants to weigh in on this also, just so the public knows. In the past, when you bought fireworks for your personal use, you would sign a waiver that you were not using them for celebratory purposes. And in the last session, the state took that language out, so you could pretty much just go up to these roadside stands, pretty much buy whatever products they're offering, and which of course for law enforcement on 4th of July, New Year's Eve, and other things of that event creates like a whack-a-mole type situation for them. Very difficult to enforce. So the reason I want to mention it is because I think we've been fairly successful in the last couple of years of toning it down. And I suspect that we may see an uptick in that.
Despite the fact that they made it easier to buy them, it's still against the law to shoot them off.
Is correct.
Any other questions for Chief? Thanks a lot for coming down here.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Your comment about if AC/DC came down here to have a concert. Brian Johnson, AC/DC, used to live here on the beach. He had a condo here on the beach, so that was appropriate. But, okay, council, let's discuss the 4th of July.
Mr. Chair, I suppose I'll start because it has been widely known that I've tried to get us to this point to at least keep the fireworks discussion afloat till we got some more information, we're able to talk to people. So I can tell you over the last 2 weeks, I've spoken to several businesses, anybody I can talk to kind of get some input of how they felt things were going as far as social distancing and how they felt Memorial Weekend went and to get their input to what they thought it would be like on the 4th of July and would they be in support of doing fireworks or not. As I said, I've spoken to many, many, many over the last 2 weeks, from small to large, and I was quite shocked to find out that all but one said the same thing. That as much as that they would like the business, as much as they really, really think we're going to have people here already, they don't feel that it's the right time to do it. Which was, I can tell you, I was amazed to hear that. I thought I would hear completely the opposite. So with that, you know, as I've said all along, to me, if there's fireworks or not, it really doesn't matter. As much as I think it's important, and I think that we all enjoy it. Like you said, I'm one to be involved in any parade that's coming around because I think it's fun. It brings out the best in people. But at this time, I'll make a motion to deny the going forward to get the special events permit for the 4th of July fireworks.
I'll second that motion.
Give me 1 second. Fireworks and parade?
I don't think either one we should do right now.
Okay, you'll amend your motion to include
I will
both.
amend my motion to include the parade as well.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion.
I'd second the motion. I'll just say, you know, aside from the tradition, which I think is really important, of fireworks on the 4th of July to celebrate our nation's founding, I think the economic development piece of it was important to me. A lot of people try to frame this argument in terms of profits over health, and I don't think it's a question of profits anymore. I think it's a question of survival for our business community, and I think one of the #1 drivers of bad health outcomes is poverty. I think we're seeing it in the food banks, we're seeing it in terms of unemployment, we're seeing it in terms of people losing their health insurance, we're seeing it, just the devastating impacts of this virus on our economy and the impact of human lives and public health as a result of that. So I think that's important, and I think we lose sight of that sometimes in this debate in terms of, you know, trying to be supportive of our business community. But I agree with Dan in the sense that it is, and I think Councilor Veach has mentioned this before, and maybe everyone has, 4th of July is somewhat unique on the island in that we have a significant uptick in business activity regardless of the fireworks, and I think we're going to have a pretty full weekend. All the businesses seem to be in good shape for the weekend, which I think is important to consider. The fireworks normally would add to that. I think in this, with all the mayor, I think rightfully talked about some of the bad outcomes that could come, particularly with the surrounding communities that have been closed for fireworks. I think I would ask, though, is we keep an open mind. The way this contract has been devised with the fireworks company, I think has been insightful in the sense that we now have some flexibility to reschedule those fireworks at a time when maybe the business community really is hurting. We'd look at maybe these off months like August, September, or October, and maybe if there's a festival that gets rescheduled to one of those times, health picture starts looking better. Maybe we use those fireworks to gin up a weekend. We get folks to come to the island when otherwise there would be no one here, in a way that would balance safety plus economic development in a way that would be appropriate. So I think the mayor's comments have been appropriate, and I associate myself with them, and I support this motion. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, of course concur. To segue into what Councilman Atterholt was saying, is that we do have an event that the TDC has been working on to try to bring people here into our slowest time of year, and that's the Island Hopper event. Currently, they are still scheduled to go on September 18th to 27th. That is, September is historically a very slow month. I would think that it might be an ideal time to try to reschedule events like this, and maybe work them into this Island Hopper. Maybe at least start conversations with the organizers of Island Hopper to see if these fireworks that we've already paid a deposit on, and we can make this a bigger event that's better for our businesses at a time when they just don't have the business.
It's a great idea, and no time like the present to start the conversation for the future. So keep that in mind and see how the organizers feel about that. And Roger, I presume that we're okay with Garden State Fireworks with the deposits that have been paid to date, because they had talked about possibly doing it in New Year's instead. So,
Yes, I do want to them to you all. They've been working very hard with us to try to see if we can explore other options should the council had wanted to move in that direction. Pretty much every way we turned, we ran into a pretty surmountable obstacle. But they have communicated with us. They have looked at what it would take to, for example, to try to do a barge and other things that the council had mentioned, and they've been very cooperative in that regard.
Oh, good. Thank them on our behalf as well. And I presume they're not going to be too busy in September, so maybe we that out to them as a possibility. Okay, any further discussion on the motion?
Just wanted to add one more thing, Mr. Chair, that I don't think I added. What people maybe don't know is that a lot has changed since we voted to get to this point. When we voted to authorize a contract, that Coral and places like that had not made any mention as what their plans were to do the fireworks or not do the fireworks. So add along, like I said, with talking with many of the businesses on the island is what led me to change my mind about pushing forward with this.
That's a good point. And I know that the business people on the beach, they want the business, but they want it right. They want it done right. And we all want that as well. So hopefully this will be a step in the right direction to doing that. Any other further discussion on the motion? Any objection to the motion? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Next item is final public comment.
Mr. Mayor, I have a request from Stan Stouter.
Stan Stouter. Hi, Stan.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. For the record, I'm Stan Stouter. I'm here today as a 39-year resident of Fort Myers Beach. And I had written all of you an email on May 19th, and that email was to reduce the restrictions on the number of access points or doors to a garage. I will not repeat that email to you because I know that you all have received it, but I wanted to have it on the public record that this request is being initiated. We're asking that it become examined and that you direct the town manager and staff to give their opinion and to be open to change. In summary, some of those reasons that I had cited were, first of all, I don't understand the rationale as to why one standard garage door is the only permittable access point to these now voluminous and cavernous areas. Secondly, I believe it's in the public's safety, health, and welfare that we take advantage of these enclosed spaces rather than preclude access to them. For example, if you have vehicles or a boat, you can get that through a normal passage door. And if you have storage on two sides of a house that has a central core, you're basically eliminating 50% of this area. It also deters crime because you're not putting these high-valued assets in accessible and exposed areas, particularly when those assets are left for months at a time, and noticeably so as observer papers back on the driveway. Now you're putting them out of harm's way, and you're deterring crime. I also believe that today's garage doors are now in excess of the wind loads that had customarily been made. And I would also argue that the visual negativity of having a longer wall structure as opposed to having that wall structure broken up by a door that could be very attractive and also superior to the wind load. We also talk about hydrostatic relief. And what is better than having a 8-inch by 6-inch hydrostatic relief intermittently than to have a 20-foot wide garage door that could possibly be used for additional hydrostatic relief. We're also seeing limited wave action coming to our island through the FEMA changes that are being proposed. Those limited wave actions are a subject for another time, but they're grievous and they are far-reaching, and I think they're overreaching. These garage doors could help ameliorate some of that volatility. Those are some of the summary comments that I put in my emails to all of you. And I wanted to take today to, first of all, thank you for your service, and definitely hope that I get to know you each individually more so as I've gotten to know Ray. I also ask that you keep me apprised as this is delegated to the appropriate entity so that we can move forward and lift the restriction of one garage door, standard garage door for every residential improvement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Stan. I'm sure that's something that can be passed on to the LPA for consideration, and bad yet the chairman was here earlier. He could have put it in her ear. But okay, any others, Madam Clerk?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Anyone else here care to speak? Okay, we'll close public comment. Town managers' items.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, questions come up with respect to the emergency situation with COVID-19, and I just wanted to remind the council that one of your declarations authorized me to be able to take certain measures as necessary. That is still in effect until such time as it's rescinded. So I just wanted to make that clear. I think some people may be concerned about what happens if. So I wanted, A, to remind you that that was in place, and B, you know that should something occur, that we're still positioned to be able to take action. And of course, we can always call a special meeting and all of that, but make sure you were aware of that. The next thing is we have our M&P on Thursday. You all have been issued the agenda. It's a lot of important issues within that meeting, and I encourage any and all of you, if you have any questions that I can answer for you between now and then, to please reach out to me. So we can try to ensure that that runs smooth. You have a big day because you have a meeting following that meeting, and the town attorney was also thinking about trying to.
Is that the order? The executive session follows the MFP, or is it
Yeah, I believe the attorney's going to talk to you about scheduling the executive session in a second, but
Okay.
if you go ahead and schedule, it would be the executive session, the M&P, and then you have
the other
council sitting as a selection committee.
right? I forgot
So
about
you have a
that.
pretty full day. Just so you all know, we'll arrange for
Okay.
Neil, so you could take a little break, since it'll be a fairly long day. But my point is that there are some items there, and there are some items there that some of you may not be fully familiar with. So after you read the item, if you feel you need some more information, please reach out to me, and I will free up my schedule over the next 2 days to answer any of your questions as best I can. So with that, I don't have anything further, sir.
Thank you. Town attorney.
Yes. Just one second. Roger, when you talked about the special powers you were given with the COVID-19, those include things like the signed ordinances and the right-of-way and those kind of.
Yes, it basically allows me to, I would say, like, waive certain things in the code if necessary to assume appropriate response to a particular situation.
What to date have you done? I mean, what actions have been taken under this?
To date, well, there's some things that we've done and have been undone by the virtue of time. But the only thing that's really still in place at this point is that we have put a hood on a parking spot in front of, paid parking spot that we may have managed in front of any restaurant, and kept that open for drive-up, pickup business. That's the only thing that's still in place.
What about the sign ordinances?
The sign ordinances, we have said that people could put the small A-frame signs out commensurate with their business being open. So you put it out in the morning, you take it in the evening when you close, but you don't leave it out there all the time. We've allowed that.
Attorney.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As the manager indicated, we are currently scheduled to have an executive session regarding the Beach Dune walkover matter that has been, the FLEDGE processes have been invoked for this Thursday, starting at 9 o'clock. I don't anticipate that executive session will go longer than an hour, so presumptively the MNP meeting would start at 10.
Sooner.
As soon as thereafter as possible. And then conversely, as I indicated to all of you, I have reached out to our outside counsel, Mr. Hudson Gill, and regarding his availability for the Jameson executive session that has also been requested. And he indicated that he would not be available for this Thursday, but would be available for the 15th. So we proceeded to schedule that executive session for that day, again, starting at 9 a.m. No reason to believe we can't and shouldn't be finished by 10 o'clock, and then the normal council meeting would start thereafter. I have been advised by staff that we have a third vessel out on our mooring field that is not paying their monthly rental agreement amount. I'll have more of the specific information available at the next council meeting, and would in all likelihood, based upon my discussion with staff, asking for authorization to initiate action to collect that money or to have that vessel removed from the mooring field if that's what the court and the council directs me to do.
How many months in arrears?
I believe 3 months. And unlike the other two, my understanding is that the owner of that particular vessel is in fact on the vessel and just keeps giving staff the runaround. Anything further?
Thank you very much. Okay, council members' items. Start on your end, Dan.
Kind of touched on it a little bit. I just wanted to wish Mr. Hughes a happy birthday. As we talked about, there was a pretty fun little parade that went by his house over the weekend. Fire department and the police. Just wanted to wish him a happy birthday and healthy next year. I got.
Yes, Mayor.
I've had a couple people ask me about emergency preparations, and I wanted just to let them know that that's on the Thursday agenda. So if they're interested in knowing how the town prepares, pay attention to the Thursday meeting. I'm sure we'll have a discussion about those preparations. Roger, did you want to add to that?
Yes, I just wanted to mention that we will, if it's not already posted, we'll be posting our emergency management plan on the town's website. It's a fairly lengthy document for anyone who would like to look at it and read through it, and we welcome any suggestions that would make it better.
The second thing that I have jotted down is that as to Mr. Stouter's comments about the garage door request, that I would suggest that we send that to the contractor that we end up picking on Thursday as part of our LDC review, to just make it part of that package. Seems that it fits. We've got that coming on right now. We've got somebody ready that we're paying to look at those types of things in our LDC, so it would seem to be appropriate. So just throw that out there. Last, I guess I would like to know from Karen whether any other communities have some ordinance we can pick up about that turtle sale issue, and not have to reinvent the wheel?
Frankly, Vice Mayor, it's the first time I've heard of rules being an issue. I do know that there has been a push through a number of jurisdictions that I can obtain those ordinances, limiting and prohibiting the sale of puppies in local pet stores. Not saying that but to use that as a starting point. I am familiar with that issue, but frankly have not heard anything in regard to turtles. And certainly get together with staff to see if they're aware of anything, and if that's the council's direction, then we'll bring that forward to you as a proposal.
Anybody else want John to look into this?
Sure.
Thanks.
Thank you.
As to Roger's comments about his emergency powers, I'd be in favor of keeping that at place at the present time. We hear talk of a second wave. I'm not saying I believe that there will be one, but there might be one, and as some experts believe that that is possible, I'd like to keep Roger's emergency powers in place.
Councilman Atterholt.
I had a number of constituents also raise the issue of hurricane evacuation procedures in light of the new coronavirus. So I look forward to Thursday's presentation on that. A lot of folks are curious as to how things may have changed versus last year, and we'll look forward to illuminating that on Thursday, Roger. But that's all I have. Thank you.
I just have one idea, and this is back in the thing of trying to see what we can do to help businesses. I haven't talked to many restaurants who said they were really limited by capacity through this time. But if that ever becomes a case, I know that in Colorado and some other municipalities, they've had like closed off streets and allowed restaurants to use that space on set periods of time, probably similar to what we've done like with Taste of the Island, that kind of thing. Just allowing restaurants that are on the street, or maybe other restaurants, to set up tables with ample spacing and a way to allow the restaurants to get more capacity in a safe fashion. I'm just kind of throwing this out as an idea of a way to maybe try to help businesses and keep people safe. They've been doing it in other municipalities.
Else? I don't really have anything else to add, except I was curious. You said Florida was the second most populated with exotics in the world. What are Florida? What was number one? Hawaii. Okay, that's
Hot for a couple of
okay. All right, thank you very much. Okay, is there anything else to add for the good of the order here today? Oh, if not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Moved and seconded. No objection. We stand adjourned at 10:56. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.